Good evening, uh, listening audience. This is Peter Grear with Greater Diversity News, and I'm here today with our Doing Business in Africa podcast. My co-host is Gerry McCants, and we're going to talk today about a video that we watched and we've been discussing to give you a flavor of what it is we're doing with this podcast and encourage you all to join us, invite your friends, subscribe to our podcast, share it with your friends, and do everything else that you can help promote our Doing Business in Africa podcast. Our ultimate objective is to build business relationships with African businesses and Blacks in the diaspora. We think that the opportunities are tremendous. We've been doing lots of reading, lots of research, and all of the reading and research sort of bears out this conclusion. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Gerry for his impressions on the video. And let me give you the title of the video. The title of the video is "This African CEO Exposes How the West is Making Billions from Africa's Natural Resources." And when they say making billions, the CEO that we're going to be talking about says that on average, approximately $50 billion in natural resources are being taken out of Africa on an annual basis and sent to Western powers and where they're processed into products that are sold back to Africa. So Gerry, you want to tell us a little bit about what you got out of the video and talk about some of the products that she was including and possibilities for us to identify and support some of these products when we can identify the fact that they're being made and promoted by African countries. Why don't you go ahead and get started?
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. And you know, I think one of the things that I got out of the video from Bridget Harrington, who's the CEO, she gave us an insight on what kind of raw materials and commodities that are in the continent. And as a business person, I think it brings you a little bit closer to opportunities in the mother country, so mother continent. And I think for companies that are already doing business in the continent, when you talk about petroleum and oil, and you talk about gold, you talk about cocoa, shea butter that, you know, some of us use quite often. I use shea butter myself. And so you really understand the impact and the sort of resourcefulness of Africa and what it has to offer. But I would say also that we have to do our homework and do our due diligence about some of these areas that the CEO talked about, Bridget Harrington. We've got to be smart. We got to do due diligence. And certain parts of Africa, whether it's East, West, North, or Southern Africa, you know, you got to realize that the relationships are critically important. You're talking about trying to connect with persons on the ground and traveling to the continent to do business. And I had a conversation with Jeff Foster, who is the owner of Core Technology Molding Company in North Carolina. And he talked about his business, doing business in Johannesburg. He said you have to have those relationships on the ground. And it helps also if you're doing business with one of these multinational corporations who's already done all the due diligence, who've already created relationships in Africa. And you can partner with these organizations and companies to look at what kind of opportunities in your best interest for your business. So I always say, do your homework. Just like if you're a tourist, you need to find out, you're going to find all the details, where I need to stay, where I need to travel, what restaurants I need to eat, and just the people that you need to meet when you're over there. It's just like if you in the United States, if you're traveling to Florida or California, wherever you're going to, Illinois, New York, you want to find out a little bit about the place that you're traveling to, make sure that you're going to be safe. Number one. Number two, you're going to enjoy yourself while you're there. And number three, if there's opportunities to invest, then you want to make contact so you can schedule your meetings prior to getting to your particular destination.
Let me do this. Let me make a couple of interjections, and
Sure.
I'm going to start with your reference to South Africa, and I'll do it in a bit of a circular fashion. But what we've been doing, you, me, members of the African Diaspora Development Institute, we've been talking about growing the business relationships between Africans and Africans in the diaspora.
Right.
And we've been doing research, trying to get as many ideas and insights as possible. And just this morning, I was reading when one of the experts was saying, stay away from South Africa. That if you want to make money in South Africa, you should have been there 15 years ago. But there are other, but there's lots and lots and lots of money to be made. And so
Right.
The more information that you arm yourself with, the more your opportunity is. However, investing in Africa is just like investing anywhere else. It comes with a certain level of risk.
Absolutely.
And so your ability to make money is certainly based upon your ability to assume a certain level of risk. But now, the other thing that we were doing in our research was looking at mutual funds that have portfolios where you can invest in companies in South Africa, not South Africa, Southern Africa, and invest in these funds with a lot more security, because the investment funds do their own due diligence before they recommend any investment product to consumers. So that's another way for people that don't want to go into business but want to be a part of the investment in Africa. They can buy shares in an investment fund. So I thought that was revealing. There is Gary
And Peter, you want to note too that we're not giving any financial advice because I'm not a
absolutely not.
licensed professional to do that. So,
No.
but you can do your own homework and look at those kind of opportunities that might be in your best interest.
Sure, and that is our financial advice. Do your due diligence, go to some
Right.
professionals that have a background in what it is that you're looking to do. And but the other thing that I want to call to our audience attention is the fact that we're involved with Dr. Arikana and ADDI, or the African Diaspora Development Institute, that is organizing Black leaders worldwide to do what it is that we're doing right here. That is, take a close, hard look at doing business in Africa. That's where the future of the Black world is. And Africa needs us, needs our expertise. And she tells people, I tell people, you tell people, that Black Americans are the best educated Black people in the world, best educated Africans in the world. And we have a skill set that Africans need, but we have to be prepared before we just try to offer it and offer it in a way that is meaningful and valuable to our people in the motherland. Now, Gary, one thing that Bridget Harrington appears to be an African American. Of course, you can't tell. She may be a Native African, but she is an investor in a coffee company. And part of what she talked about was the fact that there are micro, small, and medium-sized businesses, 40,000 of them across the continent that are trying to grow and penetrate new markets. And she mentioned the fact that there is an entity is entitled the African Continental Free Trade Area. And that what they do is they help consolidate smaller businesses, help them put their resources together so that and they handle the importing and exporting of the goods, which makes it a lot more feasible for a smaller business to be involved in trading, because they don't have to have the heavy expense of trying to identify people and companies that come at a heavy price to address the importing and exporting. Did you recall her talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area? So tell us what you recall about that discussion.
I recall that the agreement itself is an agreement with the U.S. and about 40 some odd countries in Africa. It's free trade zone agreement. And again, here's an opportunity, as the U.S. begins to play a larger role in what's going on in Africa, for us to do the kind of research and create the kind of relationships in the United States before we travel to the continent and begin to explore those opportunities. For an example, Peter, and you mentioned something earlier, we have Africans from all over the world that are in the United States that we need to create relationships with. They know, what the playing field is like in the continent, and we need to continue to enhance the kind of relationships we have here on the ground. And I think once we begin to come together and form an alliance amongst each other, I think we'll be better off when we begin to explore opportunities in the continent. And I think having this free trade zone agreement helps that piece. But also, you also have Prosper Africa, another government agency that you can, do your own research on. But they have a platform too where you can become more familiarized with what's going on in the continent and talk about business opportunities and look at the kind of agreements they have in place. Like Exim Bank, which is an export-import bank, and also a credit agency that can help you with they really focus on exporting U.S. goods and products in Africa. But here's another opportunity to create a partnership and relationship with these kind of organizations and agencies, so you can be better prepared once you take that journey to the continent and start creating those relationships.
Let me just go back to a part of the conversation that Bridget was having, and for our listening audience, Bridget starts out by making note of the fact that the export of raw materials out of Africa is about $50 billion, more or less, per year. And these are raw materials: cocoa, gold, coffee, shea butter, cocoa butter, timber, resources on top of resources on resources, raw materials on top of raw materials. And after those raw materials have been exported, they end up coming back to Africa. But when they come back to Africa, the value has changed from $50 billion a year to $500 billion a year. And so what Bridget is saying and what Dr. Arikana is preaching is that we need to build a manufacturing capacity in Africa. If we do that and make sure that whatever manufacturing venture you get involved in is sound based upon you having done your due diligence. But when we start doing that, then we start creating businesses, big businesses that will employ Africa on a scale that has never been possible, because of the fact that Africans today are more involved in exporting raw material than manufacturing goods and products. So I think those numbers speak a little bit to the enormity of what it is we're talking about. And I'm going to make one more point, Gary, and then I'm going to ask you for some parting comments.
Okay.
I'm the chairperson of ADDI for North Carolina. That's the African Diaspora Development Institute. And this past Sunday, we, as a group, watched Bridget Harrington's video. It's about 10, 12 minutes. And we talked about it. We had the same discussion that Gary and I are having here today. But I mentioned that because anyone that's interested in joining our meetings, we're going to meet once a month for an hour and a half, try to review a video of interest, one that's related to our growing relationship with Africa. If you would, after you subscribe, you don't have to subscribe, but it would be helpful if you did. After you subscribe to our video, then you can leave in the comment section, you'll make a comment, but if you leave your address, your email address, I'll add you to our meeting list and welcome you all to join us in this. This is a learning experience for many, many people. So the fact that you may not have any background in what we're talking about is fine and dandy. Many of us don't have the background, but we can learn it together. And one thing is for sure, we have to create an option for Black employment that is different from the one that we experience here. We need a motherland option. So with that, Gary, you want to add anything else in closing?
I think, Peter, I think this is an opportunity just to share information with the audience and invite others who may be thinking about it, who may be experts, and understand that, Africa is like no different from investing in the United States. You got to have capital. You got to have the information you need. You got to have infrastructure. And so you got to understand the guidelines and the politics behind what's going on. So there's a lot of different variables that you have to be prepared for, particularly if you're in the business space and the commerce space, and you're thinking about investing resources and capital into a market that you've never been to, never traveled to. And I would always tell people, take a trip, be a tourist for a week or two and see what you like. Do your homework on what part of the continent you want to travel to, and see how you can create some relationships, and create the relationships in the U.S. for persons who are from the continent. They understand it. There are organizations and business organizations in the United States that you can create the kind of relationships and partnership with, so you can have a little bit more intelligence and knowledge about what you're getting ready to journey.
Let me add on to that in closing. One of the things Gary mentions is the fact that, look, you don't have to be an investor to help the motherland. You can be a tourist, you can be a consumer. One thing that we want to do is help Black people in the diaspora become consumers of products that are produced in the motherland by companies that are based there, because we know that what Black dollars have been doing for far too long is empowering other ethnic groups to the exclusion of Black people, Black businesses. So consumer power is tremendous, and we need to concentrate on making sure that as we are empowering other ethnic groups, that we empower Black businesses. So with that being said, Gary, I want to thank you deeply for your participation in this discussion. Gary and I are going to be doing this on a continuous basis. Go to our video, and of course you're there if you're listening to me. Add a comment, send us your email address, and if you have some expertise or you want to be a guest on this program, Gary can interview you, I can interview you, both of us can interview you. If you have some special expertise that you'd like to share with our audience, we need you. And so with that being said, thanks so much and have a great day.
Thank you, Peter.